Let's boost your English skills.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the Boost English podcast. I'm your host, Olivia. Want to make English learning fun? Stick around. Today, we'll boost your listening skills while catching up on recent world events. Even if you miss a word or two, don't worry. We'll cover key vocabulary near the end.
Yeah, sounds great. I've brought my coffee and headline notes, so let's dive in.
So first, how have you been, David? Anything interesting this week?
Well, mostly prepping for this episode. I did get lost in a rabbit hole about space rockets, but more on that later.
Oh, classic you. Ready to share some news and help our listeners practice?
Absolutely. Let's kick things off. What's first on the list?
So, the G7 summit in Canada turned dramatic when President Trump cut his trip short because of renewed fighting between Israel and Iran. Other leaders stayed behind in the Rockies to salvage a joint statement.
You know, Macron tried to spin the exit positively, saying it could free Trump to broker a ceasefire. Still, allies grumbled about mixed messages on Ukraine, tariffs, and climate. The gathering showed how fragile big power cooperation can be right now.
Actually, what struck me was the economics angle. Britain finalized a trade deal with the U.S., while Canada hopes to wrap its own pact in 30 days. Trade keeps moving even when diplomacy stalls.
Yeah, journalists on site said the mood in Kananaskis swung from excitement to confusion once Air Force One roared off. Some staffers even scrambled to cancel dinner menus.
By the way, for English learners, note how roared off paints a vivid picture of quick departure. Phrasal verbs add color.
Oh, and umbrella word of the day, summitry. The practice of conducting high-level meetings among leaders.
All right, let's move on.
Next up, extreme heat. Greece declared a state of emergency on Chios. Firefighters, planes, and helicopters fought huge wildfires threatening Mastiha groves.
Meanwhile, in the U.S., a massive heat dome means Chicago could revisit the deadly 1995 conditions, and New York opened cooling centers. Britain hit 34 degrees Celsius, 12 degrees above seasonal norms.
Well, researchers warn that demand for air conditioning may triple in a decade, competing with data center power needs. Grid planners have their work cut out.
I read that scientists now measure wildfire intensity using the Fire Radiative Power Index, which helps predict smoke spread.
Another English tip, the phrase bake under is informal but vivid. Europe baked under an early heat wave.
Heat safety posters also remind us to pace yourself when working outside. Good collocation to remember.
Okay, what's burning figuratively after the heat stories?
That would be the literal fireball in Texas. During a late-night test on June 18th, SpaceX's Starship upper stage exploded just before a full-engine static fire. Video showed a dramatic flash and shockwave.
Right. Engineers suspect a pressurized nitrogen tank failure. The site, called Massey's, stayed cordoned off, and luckily no one was hurt. But each mishap adds paperwork with the FAA and pushes Mars dreams further out.
Still, remember the company's rapid iteration mantra: fail fast, fix fast. Fans remain optimistic, but investors are watching cost overruns.
Observers call these failures RUDs, rapid unscheduled disassemblies. SpaceX embraces the humor to keep morale high.
Vocabulary note: iteration means a new version in a series. Software and rockets both iterate quickly.
Elon Musk tweeted the fix may only take a few welds and a swap out, though regulators will verify.
All right, transition time. Where are we heading next?
Over to the Philippines. A magnitude 6.3 quake struck east of the archipelago at a depth of just 10 kilometers. Shallow quakes pack a punch even when offshore. Local disaster agencies reported brief power cuts.
Thankfully, no tsunami was triggered, and early reports show limited structural damage. Still, the tremor reminded residents to keep go-bags ready, since the region sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire.
In fact, local schools held earthquake drills the following morning. Simple actions like drop, cover, and hold on save lives.
An aftershock is a great term to learn. It describes smaller quakes following the main event.
Emergency officials praised the public for staying calm, a reminder that preparedness matters.
Okay, should we get back to U.S. legal news?
Sure. The Supreme Court's shadow docket allowed the administration to deport migrants to so-called third countries while litigation continues. The order is temporary but powerful.
The dissent argued the move rewards lawlessness and risks sending people to unsafe regions like South Sudan. Due process advocates call it a humanitarian setback.
The ruling sits on the emergency docket, meaning no full briefing or oral argument. Useful legal term to know.
Reporters say advocacy groups are now fundraising for rapid legal clinics at airports to advise targeted migrants.
The phrase, fire up the deportation planes, trended online, sparking fierce debate over immigration rhetoric.
And a reminder for learners, to deport means to send someone out of a country, usually by legal force.
Staying with the High Court, a 7-2 ruling lets vape companies pick favorable circuits when appealing FDA decisions. Critics say this venue shopping will delay regulation of flavored e-cigs aimed at teens.
Justice Barrett's majority said Congress wrote the law broadly. The dissent feared an end run around venue limits. Legal vocabulary note, venue is the place where a trial occurs.
Anti-smoking advocates warned the ruling could open Pandora's box for other regulated industries.
Meanwhile, vaping companies argue the FDA process lacks transparency, citing inconsistent data requirements.
Whatever side you're on, the case shows how word choice, like adversely affected, in statutes shapes real outcomes. Moving to tech business, Reuters reports Microsoft may leave the table in talks about upping its stake in OpenAI. If negotiations collapse, Microsoft will stick with its contract until 2030, but perhaps slow fresh investment.
You know, OpenAI allegedly considered accusing Microsoft of anti-competitive tactics. Pretty dramatic when you're talking about your main cloud partner. Big money equals big tension.
Industry analysts note that even a pause could shift cloud customers toward open-source models if licensing costs rise.
Expression spotlight walk-away negotiations, meaning leave the table without a deal.
We'll watch whether both sides blink before the quarter ends. Speaking of AI, OpenAI also sounded the alarm about China's Zhipu AI. With $1.4 billion in state backing, Zhipu is selling sovereign AI packages to Malaysia, the UAE, and more.
The strategy aims to embed Chinese standards before US or EU players arrive. It shows that AI competition is as geopolitical as traditional energy markets.
Zhipu courts clients by promising on-premise language model hardware, so data never crosses borders. A big selling point.
That tactic appeals to governments focused on data sovereignty, another key buzzword.
OpenAI's For Countries program is a counteroffer, helping allies build talent pipelines. All right, basketball fans, the 2025 NBA draft is here. A Cooper flag is a lock at number 1 for Dallas, but San Antonio's choice at 2 could reshape the league. Harper offers playmaking, Bailey brings shooting, and Edgecombe adds defense.
Analysts debate whether the Spurs trade for veterans to fast-track wins around Wembanyama or stick with a long-term core. The draft doubles as a masterclass in risk management.
Sports economists say a number 2 pick under the new collective bargaining agreement can save teams $20 million in salary cap space, compared with a veteran star.
Idiom check, on the clock. Once a team's draft timer starts, commentators say they're on the clock.
Fans love draft night surprises. Rumor mills suggest blockbuster trades could still shake things up.
Franchise cornerstone is today's sports vocab gem. It means you're built around star.
Lastly, at Cape Canaveral, Axiom 4 launched with astronauts from India, Poland, and Hungary. They'll spend 2 weeks on the ISS doing microgravity experiments under Peggy Whitson's command.
It's a milestone for those nations. Their first ISS visits in over 40 years. Axiom wants to bolt its own modules onto the station by 2028, then split off into a fully private outpost.
Fun fact, Peggy Whitson now holds the U.S. record for time spent in space, 675 days.
For India's Shubhanshu Shukla, the mission doubles as a rehearsal for Gaganyaan life support protocols.
Phrase highlight, liftoff is both noun and verb. The rocket will lift off. Or liftoff occurred at 2:30 a.m.
Space stories always fire up my imagination. Looking back, I notice a pattern. Risk management is everywhere, from global politics to basketball drafts and rocket labs.
Right, leaders and engineers all juggle bold ambitions with backup plans. It's like learning English. You stretch yourself, but keep dictionaries handy.
Great point. I always tell students to embrace trial runs, like recording your own voice before the big presentation.
And yeah, don't forget community. Every news story had teams, fire crews, legal clinics, or coaching staff. Nobody succeeds alone.
That's why listening to this podcast with friends can double the benefit. You chat afterward and lock new words in memory.
Speaking of words, should we hit that vocabulary sprint so everyone walks away with concrete takeaways?
Absolutely. Let's power through them. Pens ready? Ceasefire.
Ceasefire means a temporary stop to fighting so both sides can negotiate or regroup. Heat dome.
Heat dome means a high-pressure system that traps hot air, leading to extreme surface temperatures. Wildfire.
Wildfire means an uncontrolled fire in forests or grasslands, often spread by wind and dry conditions. Static fire.
Static fire means a ground test, where a rocket's engines ignite while the vehicle stays anchored. Seismic.
Seismic means related to earthquakes or vibrations in the Earth's crust. Dissent.
Dissent means a disagreement or opposing opinion, especially in a formal decision like a court ruling. Venue shopping.
Venue shopping means choosing a court believed to be favorable to your case. Stake.
Stake means an ownership share or investment interest in a company or project. Sovereign.
Sovereign here means controlled by a nation itself, rather than relying on foreign providers. Franchise cornerstone.
Franchise cornerstone means a player seen as the central long-term foundation of a sports team. All right, that wraps up our vocabulary boost and today's news tour.
Remember, pick one story and read a full article in English. You'll reinforce what you heard.
And try talking about it with a friend. That's a great way to remember what you've learned.
And remember, practice makes progress, not perfection.
Thanks for tuning in to Boost English. If you liked today's episode, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with friends. Until next time, keep practicing, keep curious, and keep boosting your English. Bye for now.
Catch you next episode. Take care.